Yes.
Point of information.
Go ahead.
I'm feeling somewhat poorly today, so if we could wrap this meeting up by 9 o'clock, I'd be much obliged. I just had some health issues and I'm much improved, but
You don't need an 11 o'clock.
no, even at 10 o'clock. So yeah, I'll excuse myself if I leave at 9, you two can carry on. But if we could do that, that'd be great.
My schedule has been busy enough that I would concur.
Thank you.
We will try to get through what we can, and maybe last week I know we made some appointments here, and maybe we had just a little too aggressive
It got more and more
agenda.
full.
So it is a long agenda. So. But thanks for saying that right after the beginning.
Okay.
But a number of things can just be held there freely for discussion.
Okay. Warrants.
Yep, I reviewed them.
Payroll warrant. So we're signing a payroll warrant of $18,060.65. I believe that's probably for some miraculous reason, that's probably the shortest one since February.
Nothing new, but just see when she was telling us how there's been quite a few renewals and improvements and whatever, so
Right.
she's getting busy. Okay,
All intact?
no questions.
Sign the letter. On this one?
I have something that you warrant and need.
13.
Go ahead, you've got something
I
that's
do.
warrant related?
Paulette had asked last week at the close of the meeting about my conversation with town council, and it related to the warrant, so I guess this is an appropriate place to respond to any questions. I really wasn't sure I was going to be making it today, so I've taken the time to write a response, and if the chair desires, I'd be glad to read it into the record, but I don't feel a need to necessarily. So I'll pass this out. I've made enough copies to have them down and save the scribe a lot of effort.
You were actually thinking
not coming.
ahead of not coming.
Well, I was on the edge. Things have improved, so yeah.
This is the one from April 10th that referenced a phone call and the...
Well, her invoice, I don't recall the
and the
actual
Ashfield
date.
house.
Her invoice, Paulette, was yes, the 10th.
Oh, there it is.
It's
Okay.
attached.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, so often when there is a semicolon, it's just breaking up a number of items that day.
that was a portion of that, what was done on the 10th, for that
I guess so.
that $75 amount, a portion of that $75 amount.
There was no discussion relative to the Ashfield.
Thanks, Ron.
All right, let's move on, get the warrant signed. I've got a few sets of minutes here that need to be caught up with. 3 sets. I was emailed all of those and hoping that you all got copies also.
The minutes of February 25th
Yes.
have already been done and approved. They were approved on the 18th of March.
I didn't see it on the website.
They're not on the website, but I have my copies and we had the draft.
I wondered if they were approved.
They
I didn't
were
get a chance to look at that.
On March 18th.
I believe
But isn't there a copy in the book with approval date on it or something?
there may be. I'll let Lynn address it. I mean, I think what you said to me is you saw that they might be under discussion tonight, so. But I didn't get a chance to go back and look myself.
Not the common book.
Well, why don't we move on the April 17th. There's minutes from April 17th.
And you said the 18th, Paula. I have my rough draft, and in the upper right corner, I wrote down approved 318, so I presume that the official one must have something similar on it? Okay. Which one is it?
April 17th.
Okay.
Make a motion to get it on the table, so we can discuss it. To approve the minutes of April 17th, 2013.
I'll second that. Anybody have any corrections or amendments they'd like to make?
I'll make a statement. We are still making our minutes far too brief. The open meeting law wants more detail. They usually refer to the AG's office, sufficient specificity. And these just keep coming up shorter and shorter and shorter, and so we don't meet the standards that I believe the AG's looking for, based on that quote that he gave me, and it was, could anyone who did not attend read the minutes and understand what occurred?
Is that the discussion that happened last week at the seminar in Greenfield?
They use the word summary, but they don't expect it to be so verbatim, but they do expect some content. And I believe we keep falling short on content. Just a statement.
Karen?
After, there was some discussion in the meeting, which I think was heard, and then afterwards I did go up and talk to Jonathan Slarzik. You were there talking to him as well. And I did ask him about detail in minutes and whether we needed to be quoting people, and he said no. He did just repeat that as summary so you can tell what the discussion was about.
I think the whole thing comes down to what a summary is. As I quoted before, the Selectmen's Handbook also talks about a summary of what was said. I think we have to kind of work together to figure out what constitutes a summary. And if need be, get an opinion from town council on where to go with this. A written opinion. I know that we've had opinions offered by other people, but, one that we can stand behind, if we can't come together.
I would think the important thing, just common sense, is that you have what you discussed, and it doesn't have to be, sometimes when you're having these discussions, somebody plays devil's advocate, and trying to make decisions and understand how things are going to work. So if there's, it's noted in there, the topic that was discussed, and who was present, if you have appointments and so forth, and if a motion is made and the votes are taken and how the vote went, I would think that would be, I feel these minutes for that meeting, we had that with the finance committee. And, general discussion about the budget and talking with the chief and so forth. And we talked about the stipends, the firearms clerk stipend. That's in there.
I don't have an issue with this particular set of minutes because of the nature of this meeting, but in general minutes, I feel that as part of a summary, if there is a dissenting opinion amongst the board, that there should be mentioned more than 2 in favor and 1 against. It should be that Paulette felt or Ron felt, one sentence, maybe. I don't think that it's really up to the chair to control the meeting and not let it, go too long and to make the dissenting opinion that much longer. But I do think courtesy and enough of a summary should be in there to allow some say in that summary. My opinion. I'm fine with these minutes personally, but that's some questions.
The only amendment I would make is under minutes on this set of minutes is, the second sentence, I guess, in the middle of that paragraph on the minutes. It says, Lucard expressed her desire to sow seed. Should that be sow seed or should that be to seed? And I'm wondering, should we scratch the sow? Yeah, so. That would be my amendment to just correcting that so that
If you were really going to correct it in its entirety, it would look entirely different. When you read that, you don't know what it's talking about.
we would, because we actually did make some changes to that. Did we amend the minutes of April
We did.
8th after that discussion?
We did.
That's April 17th.
There were no documents that we had that. There's no document list attached. There were no documents.
Well, we haven't been attaching a document list because all the weeks of the joint meetings are documented within the budget book when each thing was taken up, any documents that were prepared. And it would seem like tremendous amount of work and probably a waste to duplicate that and put it in folders. But for every day, you can go to the part of the budget book that has that schedule and the documents.
Well, that would be another amendment I would make, is I would just add a note at the bottom saying the budget. Right, see, 2014 budget related documents.
And at last week's meeting, we came up with a sentence we wanted on the end to reference the fact of the draft minutes.
Yeah.
Yes.
As amended.
So that's going to be a standard.
I'm going to talk
procedure.
about that in the next minute where it was decided, so.
Right. So, all those in favor of approving these minutes of April 17th as amended? Aye. Aye. Opposed?
Opposed?
That's one off the pile. May 13th, last week.
I have to admit, well, I'll make a motion to accept the minutes and get it on the table and discuss it of May 13, 2013.
Second. This was just last week.
Perhaps a little daft on the sentence, but I thought the sentence was slightly different. I'm looking down under the word minutes.
Yeah, where, okay,
It says, no, this is the standard language going on the bottom of all minutes. These draft minutes were discussed and amended and approved at select board meeting blank dash, that we would physically write in when they were. If there was nothing ever written in, then you know they weren't
Okay.
discussed. And then my question is, and filed with the ED on the end in the folder of the actual date of said minutes. Is that what we agreed to?
right, it should have the date on it.
Yeah.
Right.
It
It's like
should,
a boilerplate, and you just filled in the date,
Yeah.
right?
so are you saying we should say, it should have a blank in there for the select board meeting where they were amended? But do we want another blank where they were approved? That's
Fine by me if we think they're going to be different.
Which they always are, right?
Well, when they're amended, it's usually when we're approving them lately.
Okay. Does it say on the minutes always when they were approved, on the top of the minutes?
That, we had that discussion last year.
But I looked at some of the ones on the web, and I didn't see, I mean, in the text, it says that they were approved.
Yeah, but they were handwritten as they've been for a long time along the top. Putting them on the web, sometimes that doesn't show, so I think the discussion last week was to kind of change some of that.
Okay. So they will be handwritten on the top,
You said you
or,
wanted it in text.
what's that?
In text.
You said you wanted it in the text, rather than...
Well, if you're going to do it in the text, say something like that they were at the select board, approved that, and put it in the blank there. And then they're actually filed in the folder the date of said minutes. Is that correct? That's where
So
they're
all we
filed.
need is the date.
Yeah.
The change,
Blank.
the change in this is, and I expected it to have a date, that it was.
Yep.
And I did say, and filed
Yes.
with the ED in the folder of the actual date of said minutes.
And just as
Do you guys agree with that, or no? I mean,
Yeah, I do. That's,
Do you have that, Lynn?
Yeah.
Those words?
Mhm.
Okay.
as a point of information, until that decision was made, going back a long time, they have been filed in the folder where they were accepted. However,
Which we could do
going
also.
forward, but just so people know, you'll find up to a certain point it'll be one way, and then after a certain point,
I'm good with
Just
either way, just as long as we have the way.
as long as it's in there.
Yeah.
Read me the first part of that draft again, where it started, the first part of the draft. Oh, it's right here in front of us, sorry.
Right in part of the minutes.
These draft minutes were discussed, amended, and approved at the select, I would say the select board,
Mhm.
insert the, THE, select board meeting dated with a big blank after it,
Yeah.
line, right, that needs to
Yes.
be filled in. And filed with an ED in the folder of the actual date of said minutes.
Right.
And that'll be from now on the bottom of every single one, and we will handwrite in when that was done.
So that parenthesis after meeting goes to the far end. That's the whole note, right?
Correct.
Oh, yeah, good point.
That's correct.
Parentheses to the end. Okay, I just didn't know if I was misreading. I had a further point, I will
Hit
get
it.
going, right?
Get it?
Under employee review and form and policy, which is on the next page, I didn't check the recording, but I don't recall, the last sentence of the employee review says Carter recommends including something pertaining to job description ratings. I remember you looking into job descriptions.
Right.
We were kind of in agreement, but I don't remember the word ratings necessarily.
Yeah, I don't remember saying ratings, and the more the discussion went, we talked about
Position description.
position descriptions and having those.
Yeah.
It sounded like we were gonna have those when we did the reviews and attach them to the reviews, and that would be the,
I thought
I
that,
think I was looking for that, when I did say, maybe I did say something about ratings, and we said we'd have to have a different form for every position at that point, but then we just
Then
attached
we went
them.
off.
Right, so.
I thought what was missing from that paragraph is it would have been good if it had indicated the final two recommendations for changes that the board sent back to the personnel committee. And one of them was that third line where it said position description, please include, or please attach.
Please attach.
And then at the end of it, at the very bottom, Ron made mention of a document codes, or,
So
so you could find it in an electronic file, which we were done, they would be in.
The file name and extension.
I think it would be good if that was in there, because that was a recommendation from the board.
So let's give some words.
I've got a couple other things for that paragraph as well when we're ready.
well, what do we want?
I'm all set with what I had to say there. If you have suggested words for that, Paul, I identify what they are.
Okay. I didn't distribute, I think I was discussing, and it says the draft, and it should say the draft of the employee performance review form. Otherwise, it does say it to the left and it's highlighted, but I think it also should be in the sentence.
So what's the difference? I mean,
I did not distribute it, because if you,
You
one
stood up
second.
and, okay.
Wait a minute, because at the end of that sentence where it says from the personnel board, which was submitted by email on February 20th, 2013, the personnel board sent it to all of us. We didn't discuss it till that night, but I didn't distribute it. We had it a long time ago. But I was
You
talking
had it,
about.
you had it printed out, so, right, that, I think that's what the reference
Right.
was. You had it printed out, so we didn't have to look it up electronically.
Right, right. So after board, if you would just add that, it says from the personnel board submitted February 20th, 2013. And then when it says draft, it would be good if it said draft employee performance review form from the personnel board.
Good with that?
They acted upon that, but that's not part of the minutes. We'll go back.
Hold on, what was the email date?
Pardon?
What was the email date you wanted in there?
February 20th, 2013.
Okay.
You could, yeah, submit it by email if you like. Under review of annual town meeting, perhaps we should start looking. I know that Mary had presented several different options that had been talked about. You had several different versions, Mary, you brought up that night. And I'm wondering if we should be, I'm on the first page of the review of annual town meeting. And Mary, we were talking about the declining attendance. Mary had presented 2 or 3 options that you all had been discussing in town hall.
Oh, no, I didn't, I wasn't really presenting options, I was just saying, it's a discussion we've had, there are a number of ways you can do it, but there was nothing formal there.
Yeah, I felt that it was more like just throwing.
It was mostly,
Throwing some ideas
some
out.
more kind of planning to try to get some detail around.
Okay. So we still want to leave it that we should look at different options, or was that?
I mean,
That's fair to still leave, even though that was just.
I was going to use,
Okay, that's all right. Just
I mean, if there's any addition to that, I don't even think it's an addition, I mean, any change that we make to that will be a 2-year process by the time you get the bylaws changed and so forth. So somebody will have to come up with a pretty good plan and discussion on that and take a position.
I do remember you saying that last week, and I wonder if that would be good to add here. Perhaps we start looking into different options, because one would expect changes might take 2 years to implement. I mean, that's the second time you said it, and that's sort of important.
We can add that in this week's minutes.
Okay, fine. Oh, I know. I'm on the last page. Lucar questioned the phone call to the town attorney with the mention of Ashfield House. I really was not questioning if he had permission to do so. I was questioning what was the content of the phone call.
Yeah,
I presumed.
that was
yeah,
my read.
I didn't ask.
Well,
Yeah,
Yeah,
so we can scratch that and just stop at house, period.
Just what?
just
From
add
the word "and" to
Just
the end?
And to the end, we come out, yeah. I wasn't questioning your permission,
I
I
know.
just
Do you
content.
understand that, Lynn?
Yep. Anything else?
I do have one more thing. When I looked at the evaluation form, under that, going back to the employee review form and policy, I have it written here just a little bit different, that this, over the summer, we would be going over the position descriptions. By September, and it could be September 15th, the evaluations would have been distributed to the boards and the committees. And by December 1st, reviews commenced or completed. I wasn't really sure what was
I
happening.
remember at least twice saying that November was going to be employee review month and they were going to
Be completed.
be by the end of the month.
Well, what about reviewing the position descriptions over the course of the summer? Because I don't see how we can both, in this one it says that recommends including, the board will ask the personnel board to bring all job descriptions to them prior to September 15th. If we get them on the 14th, it's going to be hard to deliberate on.
In our discussion that night, Paulette thought that was a really way long window.
I have good news for you guys. We're moving ahead on this. So I agree though with Ron that I think the September 15th, by then,
We
my
should-
understanding, they should have been approved already and we should have the evaluation forms and that package is
Right.
ready to go so people have time to look it over, is my understanding.
Give them plenty of time to sweat it out, huh?
Maybe we modify that one sentence that says the board will ask the personnel board to bring all job descriptions to them over the course of the summer and have them finalized and approved prior to September 15th.
That
That's
sounds
okay.
good. Yep.
Did you get that one?
I'm getting it.
Seems like somebody should be able to read that and know what we talked about, right?
Right.
That one would seem good.
Anything else?
You attached the, it's already there.
Hearing no other amendments, do we want to approve them as amended?
So move.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Unanimous. Awesome. Awesome. We'll look down through these appointments. Doug Field. You want to talk to us? Come up front. We want to get you on camera. Smile for the camera, Doug.
Okay, I just wanted to bring you up to date on the Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency grant that we got last year. It was for $2,500. And Robbie Poisson and myself, we have a generator. It's a 7,500 watt generator. It is installed. It will power the firehouse completely. Everything in the firehouse is full power. Here in the town hall, it will power the furnace in the offices and downstairs.
Both furnaces.
No, just that furnace there, it covers the offices and the offices down here.
Oh,
The big furnace just takes the two big rooms. It also covers all the plugs in Ann's room, all the plugs in Laura's room, all the plugs in the assessor's room. It powers the internet and the telephone system throughout everywhere. One of the days, in the next couple of weeks, when the town hall is closed, we're going to come in and power it up completely and see if we can add more to it. At this time, we put on as much as Robbie knew on paper it could power. And we're hoping that we can get it powered to Lynn's room, the wall plugs and the plugs in Mary's room. We cannot power these lights in any of the rooms. They are, I know Brian said they're energy efficient, they're not as efficient enough to be able to power them. So the girls have already said, Ann said, they can use dust lights if they have to on it. It is an in-kind match. Once I submit the bill, we will get 100% reimbursement on it.
so what account are we paying this out of in the meantime?
At this moment, I guess it's going to come in as a negative in my account. They did it the same thing last year.
Where does it come in as a negative?
Comes out a negative out of the emergency management account.
And
It'll take approximately 3 weeks from the time I submit I have to have the bill and a copy of the canceled check, a copy of the check. I submit it to MEMA, and in about 3 weeks, they'll send the check to us.
And Doug, we did discuss with the
We did
accountant
this
and the
last-
treasurer whether to set up a special account.
She just set up a special account, just like she did with the hurricanes and everything. As soon as the grants come in, it's paid.
Well, I was going to say her feeling was not to set up a special account for each time it's done, but to do the deficit.
It comes, they have, matter of fact, they just had another one come out this year. It just came out today, Monday.
What
Last
is it
Thursday,
that came out, I'm sorry?
for this next fiscal year coming. It just came out again. It came out Thursday, I can have it all submitted by the 14th of June. This is what, they don't give you much time to do anything. So first come into the town and get, a special town meeting and things, we just don't have that time to do it. Yes, Mom?
I had a question. When you were talking about everything here in Town Hall, did I miss you saying the police department? That it
The
would
police
power that?
department, there's some computer in the police department that has to be powered at all times.
It's a server.
So it takes,
It does carry that.
okay,
yes.
thanks.
I have a question, Doug. If Nancy Ann wasn't here, could Mary run an extension cord to
Yes.
power her unit?
She could run an extension cord right now if she wanted to.
Oh, she could? It would take the load of
Yeah,
another
we'll take
computer?
that load. It's just it's something about the wiring system
Oh,
to those rooms out back. I guess they haven't found,
do we
They have
have,
it what?
hasn't found the circuit for them yet.
Oh,
The 3 rooms, there's one wire that powers all those 3 rooms, and that's what they found. The switch box is downstairs, and there's a plug out on the wall, out on town hall, outside. But the generator will plug into that one, or into the firehouse, to power both buildings.
and it detaches from the line.
And it attaches down here, if you happen to go down and look at it, right by the fuse panels, there's 6 or 8 switches, and right now they're down on power. When we lose power, we bring them to the off position, put the generator online, and then kick them up into the generator. And when it goes back to power, we just kick them right down again.
do we currently have, Mary, an extension cord that would run from one room into the other, if that ever happened?
Well, if she don't, the fire station.
I was going to say, I don't know, I haven't looked, but then if not, I'd have to call, so we get one pretty quickly.
Thanks.
My concern is taking an account negative.
And that's what I'm saying, we did talk to.
It happened, it went negative last year, and then the town accountant set up a special account for it, and it sat there for 3 weeks until we got it. It came back out of my account and went into some kind of special account that you can do with it. And it sat there till the grant came back. It's really been done now for the last 2 or 3 years, but.
Yeah, you know, this going negative, sir, how soon will you be submitting the bills to the state?
Just as soon as I get it from Robbie.
My concern is I'd hate to have that account be negative at the close of the year, so when the auditors look at it.
They're supposed to be giving me so I can turn it in the next warrant. And hopefully they should be able to have the money here before 1st of July.
What's the amount? What's the amount? 25?
2,300. Robbie figures 2,300 to do both, everything. And if there is more, then we might wait and get the full 2,500, submit the 2,500, and then take the old generator that was working here up to the town of Arms. Get you to that diesel and gas up there.
Tom? Just before we had the last special town meeting, we did talk to the accountant about whether, as part of the special town meeting, we should set up a line to handle it differently. And she said no. I mean, I had a roughed out article ready to go if we wanted to do it, but she said no, and I think she said it's connected to other items that you're allowed to deficit spend in anticipation of reimbursement. In other words, it's just for the amount that you know.
It only concerns me from being right at the end of the fiscal year.
And we could ask about that again.
I'm not sure whether I'm going to put the grant in this time. They gave us a list of everything that we want to use, and I haven't really done anything on that. There is one thing on there that I was told I ought to try to get, and I don't know. That's a new satellite cell phone for emergency management in case of emergency. I don't know how they work. I don't know nothing about whether we should do that.
Can you get another generator of the same size or bigger for the highway department, since when the ice storm took that out, you couldn't get fuel, the doors, all that? Because the one you're moving up there is not all that big, it's older and used. Could we get another one?
Well, this year they cut it down to us. I only got $2,000. I can ask Robbie Poisson if we could get a generator for that price to put up there. Yep.
I mean,
Yeah.
if there's nothing else to use the grant money for it, because it sounds like the one that you just got is bigger than the one that they had been using, correct, in terms of?
The one they have been using will power just the diesel fuel and the gas up there. It won't power nothing.
That's right. I said I would think that would be quite a lot if we had power for the fuel pumps.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, during the hurricane, we had to go to Davenport and Sheldon Falls to get diesel fuel and gas for the fire trucks.
So if he didn't have anything else to put a grant in for, it wouldn't be bad to get a new one, because that one that's over there now is an older one, and it's probably less watts or.
Yeah, that's only 3,500. That's why we're only run the diesel pump and diesel pump and computer, because they're all computer.
You don't need them until you need them, but you're glad you have them. And I'm sure with that rebuilding, it must be
That's
something else
not
they
on
want
the
to be
grant,
able to
so
run.
that could be used, you know.
Well, we've taken hell of a generator to be able to power the welders and those sorts of
Oh,
things.
yeah.
How about the doors?
Doors, you pull the ropes and it'll pop
No,
up on the
no,
spring.
that's just like the fire station.
But you know what list is on, what's on that
Is,
list.
I know what list is on the list, yeah. The generators are on the list.
I'm sure you're talking to the fire and police and trying to pull that together a little bit.
But right now, this is what we have set up for this. And as I said, it's an in-kind match, and all that is for me to figure out the paperwork, and there's no money exchange whatsoever.
Does anybody have any issues with what Doug's doing or how he's doing it? Any issues at all?
Thank you for getting it. sounds like, I mean, for us, it ends up in the cost.
No, there'll be no cost, I mean, it'll be all, let's say, the in-kind match is just that I had to figure out how many hours that, you know, like Sandy, when we were sitting there, how many hours we were there, and that's the in-kind match.
When you say in-kind, you mean services, in-kind.
Time and service,
I just gotta figure out, I gotta come up with the same amount of money as our match thing allows, and that's not very hard to do.
We'll count the 15 minutes you've just been talking about. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Devin.
Do you have a date tonight? I mean, we've got some other appointments, but I think I'm gonna wanna call on you in half an hour.
Tonight, or?
Yeah, tonight. You got places to be.
No, I got it.
You don't mind staying a little while? All right, Brendan, you've been sitting very patiently. Green River Ambrosia LLC.
Yes, we are up in Greenfield. We recently switched to Artisan Beverage Cooperative. We have 2 businesses under that. So you may see some of the paperwork listed as, I think most of them have both names listed. But we are here to get approval to sell wine at the farmers market, the Ashfield farmers market. We've done that for the past 2 years, and it has done very well. We love doing it. And we have here the submitted application to the Ashfield farmers market that we sent to Cecilia Van. She approved it, and then we sent it to the Massachusetts Department of Agriculture, and they have approved it, and now we are sending it to the select board.
So what kind of wine are you
We
making?
make mostly mead, honey wine. It's all local honey from Warren Big Area in Deerfield, and we make it down in Greenfield. And we also make a couple different junior libation and a couple different cane sugar fermented beverages. Old recipes, mostly. No real great wine.
So is this the first year you'll be selling at the Ashfield Farmers?
No, this will be the 3rd, actually.
He came before us last year. Any questions, Paulette?
No, I remember him being here last year.
I have a quick question.
They could do 1 ounce samples.
Yes.
But not at the meeting last year.
No, just.
I didn't get any paperwork with the 2 names on it, so I just did it as Green River Ambrosia after talking to you late.
Definitely, yes.
Exactly.
All the paperwork that goes with the Ashfield Farmers Market, I believe, just says Green River Ambrosia on it. The only thing I believe actually does say is the MDR application has Green River Ambrosia / Artisan Beverage Cooperative.
So that should be fine.
Yes, they approved it, so I approved it.
You find Department of Ag Resources good to work with?
They are. They have been very helpful, actually. Yeah, especially because most of the forms don't really make sense for what we're trying to do, and so all the questions don't make sense. So they kind of have to work with us pretty good. But they have that definitely.
They can be creative.
Yes.
Is there a motion to grant the license?
You have it before you. Do you want to make it specifically?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we grant a farm winery liquor license to sell at the Ashfield Farmers Market for Green River Ambrosia LLC. Sales and service of wines, mead at Ashfield Farmers Market, Ashfield Town Common, from May through October.
I'll second that.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Thank you very much.
You are so licensed.
And we usually pay you a fee for this. I know that the MDR allows up to $50 for you guys to charge me. We paid $25 last year,
And
but we did. What's that?
What's that?
we haven't changed it yet.
So would you like it $25?
Yes, the fee is $25.
What did we do for the other two?
We sent it to them.
Oh, okay, I just didn't remember us discussing the amount.
He wants to do some
Yeah, he also-
one-stop shopping.
I guess, yeah, we need to
He's
come back.
a few further.
Can I just give you this check now?
You can make it up to
Just
Town of Ashfield.
Thank you.
Well, thanks for coming up and being patient.
Well, thank you all, especially you, Mary.
Dave-
Market was open on Saturday.
Yes.
David and Poppy. Poppy and David.
Poppy, am I gonna go back? to
No,
you, or are you gonna come up to me?
I'll move forward.
You can even move forward.
Well, I got a cushion.
I don't
You?
blame you. Well, last week, before we get started on this, we spent quite a little time trying to think of things that we had to prioritize, kind of short-term objectives. And the first one was trying to get a handle on this vocational business. So, you know, we had quite a little discussion about other things that we need to take into consideration, like the solar credits and the dam and the retaining wall, but with the amount of work that you put in and making us aware of the efficiencies. So that's why we asked for an appointment at this early date to keep that ball rolling.
So what the board is recommending is the establishment of what technically is a new committee.
Well, we're trying to, my position is that we need to figure out what we need to do. Is it going to be a committee? You and I have had a discussion about maybe we need to have another person, so we have a school committee to handle it, or how to do it. Somehow, it seems to me it needs to be formalized. And all the burden shouldn't have to be on the shoulders of David.
That's pretty good. I've given some thought to this, and first of all, the good news is that Poppy is willing to do this. And one of the important, beyond the fact that she has many years of experience, and I won't say how many, but many years of experience in public education, is that technically the matter is not the purview of the select board. It's the purview of the school committee, and the problems I've explained to the board before is that we don't have a local school committee anymore. We have our two representatives of the Mohawk board, who the Mohawk board has no jurisdiction over, so we have this void. The reason I'm mentioning this is one of the charges, I think, to this committee, and I would recommend that it be established as an ad hoc committee or something, an advisory committee or whatever, advising both the select board and the school committee representatives of matters pertaining to our vocational operations. I see this as an interim solution, and one of the things that I have in my mind would be to prepare a charge to this committee, but you are fairly overburdened, so I thought what might be simple would be for Poppy and I, for openers, to get together and attempt to establish a statement of what would be, I see, a short-term interim committee, could go 1 or 2 years, until something more permanent, appropriate, final, and in line with statute could be established. But in the meantime, you know, we have business to do that hasn't been done or done well, including bus routes, and we're going to be meeting shortly to get ready for next September. We now are getting a pretty good handle on who's coming from Hawley, who's coming from Charlemont, who's coming from Plainfield, who's coming from Ashfield, for both Smith and Franklin Tech. So I'm open to this appointment, as I'm sure Poppy is, with the understanding that we're going to be coming to you and to the school committee representatives with a report. I've discussed this with Ted Murray, my mentor, whose opinion and judgment I respect, and he thinks it's a good idea. I also think it wouldn't be a bad idea if we can find the right person, and Poppy and I would jump on this, to have a third member. We'd want to go forward with this with you understanding that there would be, in my thought, Poppy and I haven't met yet, so we haven't had a formal meeting, and I've been carrying the sandbag, but that we're going to be working in 2 different ways locally to address matters affecting Ashfield vocational operations only. And remember, we've got a big budget in front of us. We're, in terms of dollars and cents, one we're going to try to keep an eye on is number 2. It's $250,000, so that ain't paid. And we're going to try to do our very best to do the job and do it right, and work closely with our town staff. And we're also not only going to be addressing matters locally, but the only way to make this work is to work cooperatively with the other 4 non-member towns, Charlemont, Plainfield, Hawley. And as I mentioned the last time we talked about this, the good news is that all 4 towns have now agreed to the establishment of this network. It has no real formal constitution, but what it does is it gets the 4 towns working together on matters so we do not have wasteful transportation arrangements, that we're going to get the best bang for our buck, that we're going to work together rather than work independently and end up spending, a van, the current contract rate's $1,000 a week. If we don't need a van, gosh, there's a lot of weeks in the school year and we can save a great deal of money. So, a couple other thoughts, just information. One of the things that if you so appoint us, that we would come back again, not to be redundant, with a suggested statement of what our duties are, what our objectives are, what our responsibilities are, to whom we are reporting, and know that we are going to be bringing you by the end of the year a report for your consideration and for school committees consideration to probably, ideally, reestablish an Ashfield School Committee and an Ashfield. Well, we already have the Ashfield School Department, and we have an Ashfield School budget, and we're spending a lot of money, and we need a committee for oversight. So again, I would envision this as we would be interim until a permanent solution that's in line with law, acceptable to the town, acceptable to the school district, acceptable to the board, acceptable to Ashfield Town Meeting, and then we would go forward. It was 8 or 9 years ago that I worked with the Finance Committee and we had reestablished the Voc Advisory Committee and so forth and so on. But unless you have a binding permanent resolution with an elected board as opposed to an informal committee or advisory committee, whatever, it ain't going to stick. And so we got it together and it kind of fell apart and the towns went off on their own. The third member, one other thing that informational, but you so appoint us, is the last time we talked, I had prepared a letter for the board approved it, to address the matter of a student who, was she an Ashfield resident, or when did she not become an Ashfield resident? And as I think we were able to determine at first that she had left Ashfield March or April, and hence that was a $4,000 savings that we picked up on. But we had reason to believe, all of us, after our discussion, that maybe the move occurred earlier. The board wrote a letter to the superintendent director of tech, and they responded to Mary that, well, gosh, they learned that the student actually moved around the Christmas break. So that pulled the tuition bill back another $4,000. Now what I have in my mind, and this is something that will be discussed at our first meeting, is do we need to send another letter, because we have reason to believe that the move could have been even earlier than that. And after all, we had asked the superintendent to speak to both of the parents, and that I don't think was necessarily happened. So our first report to you, which might be within a matter of weeks, we might be coming back to you with a letter as we did last time and say this is what we believe to be the case, and if you feel we should take another step further, we can send a second letter, and this time perhaps ask the superintendent to respond in writing. But that's something that you can take up after you appoint us, after we meet, after we take a look at it, and come back and give you a report. Lastly, the transportation change that we worked our way through. It was a little like
You worked your way.
He worked his way through it.
All right. It has been implemented a little later than I hoped because of the delay in getting letters out, but it has been implemented. And really important order of business, which I discussed with Mary, is that we need to circle the wagons with our advisory committee and figure out, now we have a whole new game plan for busing from now to the end of the year, or actually from April to the end of the year. And how will this new apportionment scheme be put together? There's several different ways you can skin a cat, but the most important thing is it's got to be fair to everybody, and it's got to be acceptable to everybody. And so that means we really can't run this thing on our own. So this is that second function again, where we're going to have to interact and work with the other towns.
Well, that's probably where the catch is. In my mind, we need a committee, and thank you for both volunteering to do that. It seems to me we got to come up with some type of formal charge. Boundaries that need to be worked on, that we can put in writing and say, this is how long it's going to take, this is what's expected, so it doesn't grow into something that isn't agreed upon. But you spoke earlier about that the other towns have seen a need for this. At some point, we need something in the file from these other towns that they're going to form a committee the same as ours, so that interaction can occur.
Well, that's a good point, but things aren't that simple, because technically 2 of them have school committees, so they're sort of up and running. We in Plainfield do not. So this is a mishmash, Tom, and it's not simple, and the way it's gotten, where we are right now is exceedingly informal in terms of the 4-town committee.
Sure.
It has no statutory basis, it has no town meeting authorization. It's kind of being supported either by the local school community, in the case of Hawley, for example, or by the select board in the case of Plainfield.
One second, can you close that?
It is.
Can I stop some of that noise?
It is close.
I think that they
It is close.
It's close.
Yeah.
What if it came down? Would it stop that noise from coming in? Like that one over there?
Why don't you stay off?
Would it help?
Poppy and I are having our first
He's
deliberation,
wrong, sorry.
and then we haven't posted our meeting yet, so I would suggest that we attempt to prepare a charge for your review. Your hands are full enough, and I probably think we could probably whip something together a little easier, knowing what the issues are and the problems. Throw it to you. So the first time you're going to hear from us, we'll give you a charge. You look at it, you modify it, you make amendments as you see fit.
I'll say, you might have some ideas, I mean, you discussed it after last week's meeting, you might have some definite ideas at this point as to how you would, what you perceive this committee's purview to be, and we could act on how they perceive it, because there are several issues that are integral to this, and one of them is that we don't have a school committee for Ashfield. We are responsible to the town of Ashfield as representatives to the Mohawk Trail, and we're under their umbrella. And I would like to make sure that either Robin Pease or someone from the business office is aware of what our actions, what we're in the process of trying to do. I just think that it makes good sense for them to be aware. It also would give us perhaps a little more, although limited, access to
School
lists.
resources.
I mean, because there is this privacy issue that we have to be very careful about with students. And so my feeling would be that if we were either accountable to them or we worked under them or made reports to them, took direction from them, at that point, we would be able to, I think it would just work to the betterment of everyone if that umbrella were sort of.
Well, I agree 100%, and in our minds, I think we can see that. I really think before we get too far down, we need to have something from the other towns that they're going to play nice.
Absolutely. Yeah.
To everyone's benefit.
Right.
The idea of 4-town cooperation has tremendous decades-long track record. It's in everybody's interest to share the same rowboat and row
But-
together.
But I think you're right, Tom. I think that, and perhaps a letter should come from you, from the select board requesting, saying that we understand that this committee is in the process of being formed and we would like to,
Well, look, we're ready.
right? and
We're ready, are you?
Right,
The first letter, actually, under your signature, already went out to the 4 towns, and then what essentially you had in mind has been laid out, and all 4 towns have bought into it. I want to take a moment to
but
speak
if
to
they
what
respond,
they have through the, well, not in writing.
well.
Not in writing.
That's, I think
Yeah.
that's
I think-
what
I
we're
think-
looking,
I mean, do you think that's necessary, Paula? Before we form a committee to work with other towns, my idea is that probably we ought to find out if the other towns formally want to work with us, or at least put it in writing.
Let's get a
But I think we need the committee anyway. So in some ways, if you have a committee going and then you say, hey, we got our committee in place, we want to see if you're on board, it seems to me just a better timing to get them to want to participate if we've already got something moving along. As opposed to, we're asking, do you want to join us, and we don't have us in place. So I like the idea of getting our committee and say, we've lined this up, because the idea is to try to help us no matter what, and then see and say, hey, you're still planning on joining us on this
Well, it'd be
to work
very-
together.
Tom, the 4 town group, remember there's 2 roles, local and then interacting with the other towns. The 4 town group has always had, and I would propose would continue to have, the name of advisory committee. It's going back and advising the 4 town committees, all of which now, in a sense, are in place. Plainfield is a tough sell, so I don't know, I wouldn't recommend that we get too formal with this right now. And also bear in mind that I think what I need, and I'll speak for myself, is what we're setting up right now, Poppy and David Dog and Pony Show, is an interim solution leading toward a permanent fix. The permanent fix is going to require town meeting approvals on the part of all 4
I
towns.
understand that, but I just,
Let me offer a halfway solution, listening to what you're carrying on about. How about a letter of intent? Something that wasn't a, quote, regional agreement, and that scares everyone to death, but a letter of intent to cooperate, everyone shares the same unknowns on VOTEC schools, so it's a little different than a formula-based thing. Everyone kind of has to hold hands and work together on this sort of thing. So if there was a 1-page letter of intent that that didn't really nail your feet to the ground, but at least was a document you could refer to try to come together, it might be good. It doesn't.
I see that as an objective. Don't expect it in 2 weeks, because first we've got to get ourselves together and then alignment review in Mohawk, and then secondly we've got to get all 4 squirrels on the stage in the green. Once we kind of consensus, then I think we'll be ready to go there. But right now, what concerns me is in a sense, the number one thing I want to do is let's figure out what the hell we're doing with busing next year. Are we going to connect with Cummington? Can we start working with Tech? What are we going to do about the kid who's coming from Heath? You're saying, Heath, what the heck's that? Well, that's good news, bad news. They belong to Tech, but they're going to have a kid dismiss school. So how do we work that out to everybody's advantage, including ours? In one sense, having an extra kid in the van means we have Newtown paying a slice of the pie. So those are the things that are on my mind right now, rather than the larger constitutional issues. And also, let me take a moment.
David, I'm not talking about larger constitutional issues. I'm talking about not starting something to overpower our neighbors. I mean, if we're going to have a committee.
We're already started.
Right.
We're underway, and formal though we may be.
Well, I'm saying just formalize it just a little bit and say, I'm fine with coming up with a charge for our committee and
But you
even
really would.
appointing the committee.
I mean,
And
you guys,
hoping that you would also form a committee with a similar charge so they could all work together. I mean, at some point, we need something in the file.
Right.
Because I'm not comfortable appointing David Newell to make all the decisions for the vocational schools in the 4 towns that don't belong.
Well, that's why we have to report back to you and the school committee reps, that we can't have, we don't have any authority because statute gives us no authority. The only thing we can offer you to do is to go out and figure it out, do the work, and report back.
Sounds like it's, in a
And that's
sense,
gotta be all laid out on the charge.
if you have the Ashfield committee in place, using Ron's word, intent, to me, it's an intent to collaborate. It's not an official anything and who's voting and what, but somehow this thing is starting to move, because you've been pushing it on the busing, and it would save every town some money, depending how it all works out. So an intent, not to make a formal agreement, but that we're going to collaborate on this busing issue. Maybe that's the first place to start, which is what you've already started.
Both get transportation.
Right.
We've collaborated for years. This should be a no-brainer. We've collaborated since 1975.
Off and on.
And it's fallen apart, and we're gonna try to get that back together again.
Well, I would think we're just all new players
Yeah.
that forming a committee and doing that sort of thing.
Point
But
on
at
what-
some point, I would think that the town of Ashfield would drop a letter so all the other 3 towns can have it in their file, and each one of them would drop us a letter saying that that the Board of Selectmen would collaborate on. In this day and age of where everything is asked to be documented 7 ways from God knows where, I would think that just having that letter in everybody's file before people start making too
Before
big
the
a
Attorney
swing.
General suggests that this is what we need to do.
There are a number of things that group, collectively we need to do, and I want to just comment on what Poppy said, and that is that we need greater support and involvement of the central office down at Mohawk. What used to be in place 10 years ago is evaporated, where essentially their position is they've washed their hands of all of this. So we need to start a dialogue with them and talk about, after all, their transportation manager is, in a sense, overseeing these dams through the contractor. Dave Newell doesn't want to do that. I don't think Poppy wants to do that, and our informal 4-town committee is not in a position to do that.
No, but
So we gotta get them back in the saddle.
There's a whole lot more power in 4 towns collaboratively applying that pressure than just Ashfield.
Right.
And there's lots of pieces to look at. There's the piece of state reports. Right now, we're not doing it as well as I think we should be doing it. And some years, historically, long before anybody here was involved, it wasn't being done at all, and we were losing tens of thousands of dollars. That's part of our history 10 years ago plus. So the central office, the superintendent of schools, is the superintendent of schools of the Ashfield School Department. We've got to kind of reestablish that. They've got the resources, and ideally, I share the same vision Poppy articulated, which is, in the end, what the general law says, public education is, the public schools are under the jurisdiction of the school. All public education is under their jurisdiction. That's, in the end, where this needs to land up, whether it's through Mohawk, which it probably won't be, or through the reestablishment of the National School Committee. Right now, the model that we're talking about is imperfect, and it needs to be built. But the alternative to it is the way things were handled in the last 3 months. And the way things were handled in the last 3 months was David Newell from the Finance Committee volunteered too. And that's a very imperfect way.
And thank you so much for doing it.
So if you appoint us, we will get going and bring you back recommendations, a recommended charge and other, are you willing to?
Sign up for one more.
And we'll come back, and it's going to be work in progress, because remember, we're starting from scratch.
And each town may choose to make this intent to collaborate, if you will, function differently. They may appoint one person in their town as opposed to a committee, and that's just fine. We happen to choose a committee, so just as long as I think there's a collaboration on what they're trying to accomplish is the key. So,
Well, I think our committee is because we're trying to establish the ground rules, so to speak, some sort of charge for them to buy into. and to eventually be able to turn it back to the school district with the hope that now that there is something in place, people in place, that they will find it maybe a little bit easier to work with.
But in the end, the same vision Poppy shares, that there will be an Ashfield committee, call it what you will, in line with statute, connected with the school, that is going to have jurisdiction over this.
So here's me throwing mud at the wall so we can move this along, I hope, is I'm not comfortable appointing a committee without a charge.
Okay.
But I would certainly ask you as prospects for a committee on this to start working together and to draft a charge to present to us.
We'll come back.
And if you would, try to find a third person.
Absolutely.
Does that make sense?
One of the things that I recently have come to learn, unfortunately, is that there's really no such thing as an ad hoc committee anymore. Any committee that serves in an advisory capacity to any town group, it really falls under the open meeting law
Correct.
and quorums and that whole law and the regulations. So I would, just be aware that it's going to be a very formal process. I really appreciate what you folks are doing, and David, I just can't imagine with the amount of effort expended on saving this town a significant amount of money on the VOTEC side. What could you do on the other side, the regional side? And all of these responsibilities fell under the regional hat. And here you're saying we have to plug into them. I'm a little concerned with losing your independence on that too, because if we had left things the way they were, there would still be 4 mans instead of 3, correct? To your knowledge, I mean.
Yes. I'm afraid that's the way things
Have been
work
run.
without oversight.
Yeah.
That's fine, Tom, and Ron and Paulette. Know this, we are, as 2 citizens, then going to start pulling some suggestions
Right,
together.
versus-
But in the interim, work still needs to be done. I need to get the bills from Mary. We need to make corrections on the next round of, we have to come up with an apportionment scheme, and we got to circle the wagons with Charlie Stetson and Paula King from Plainfield and figure out how the hell we're going to pay the balance of the bills for transportation to the end of the year.
And I guess I have a question. I heard you say that the central office has pulled out of this.
They haven't pulled out of it, they've been out of it. And they're just now declaratively washing their hands of it, agreeing only to the most minimal of support.
I don't know what that means for the town or the town offices in terms of arranging transportation, communicating with parents. That's not anything, everything that has been done that way has been done through the district up till now, and I'm just not sure where it all stands.
Well,
I have no idea, really.
then, when we had that meeting, I sent you an email earlier today, and then you can join us. We need to bring Charlie, just for right now, we need to bring Charlie Stetson in, because that town is affected, Holly and Paula King, that town is affected.
Are parents going to be looking to the town office to know about transportation? Or?
The ideal, well, we've been invited, it's been 5 years, we're going into the 5th, Mohawk, I should say, is going into the 5th year of a 5-year contract next year. I would guess that they have no intention of providing transportation for VOTEC based on what I've learned in terms of my interactions with the superintendent's office. However, we have been invited to join their transportation subcommittee. And so therefore, possibly under the Mohawk Master Contract, vocational education could be like a rider or a subsection to it. But,
Are these new contracts we're going to do on our own?
well, that's the question. Are we going to do it through Mohawk, or are we going to do it independently? Are we going to do it collaboratively with the 4 towns? And those are decisions that need to be made. And in my judgment, the smart way to do it is to get the 4 towns together, because you're paying the bill. These 4 towns have a $1 million a year budget for vocational operations. They're tiny little towns, and they got a $1 million budget. Somebody's got to grab the bull by the horns and get going.
I
And gate's coming down on the contract by this fall, and I mean, if we're not on board, then we're on our own. And if we don't have our formal four-town together, then we're on our own. So there's work to be done, and again, I want to emphasize, it's going to be work in progress. It's going to take everybody pulling together. I've taken the initiative and kicked the ball off, the ball's down the field, now we all got to get that ball and move it up the field.
I would think it would behoove us to have Dave keep moving forward on this. And I want to say in tandem with what you're trying to put together, with Poppy or both of you are moving this forward, because it's about money for next year, and it's not, summer goes by real quick. It's the end of May. So that whole business with that busing and transportation can't languish while we wait to appoint a committee. So they
Well, I don't think this needs to be a long, drawn-out thing.
No, but they need to keep moving the way he's already
As long
started
as,
this.
for now, I have the board's support, I'll move it forward. I'll work with Poppy, we'll put something together, but there will be work to be done tomorrow.
That's fine.
I gotta get
And
that
I
all tomorrow.
really think that, you know, if you aren't on a formal committee right now, you know, you could meet for coffee and you could talk about these things, and you may have actually a few weeks before you have to climb under some open meeting law.
I have limited time I can put into it. I talked with Ted Murray about it. When I went on the finance committee, I said, you know, I'm going to try to take one special task that will do the most good for the town. I'll participate in the budget, etc. Speaking personally, I felt that the biggest low-hanging fruit in terms of economics was vocational, because I took away.
So, is it clear as mud?
It's excellent.
Clear as
You
mud.
guys work on it and try to put something together?
As soon as you're ready.
And then come to us with a charge and...
When we're ready. In the meantime, we have your support. I have your support. Poppy has your support to do what needs to be done, working with our town officials in the other towns to get ready for next year and manage the billing and to make sure. And again, we'll come back to even perhaps before the charge is there, just as we did, or I did 4 weeks ago, with a letter for your consideration sent to the Franklin Tech Superintendent.
I personally would have an issue with that just because of what I've come to learn. Before we were in the budget process and you were part of the finance committee, but if we accept advice from you without you being a formal committee, that could be detrimental to this table. And so I would suggest, you're asking for our support and we're looking to you for your advice, but form the committee tomorrow, come in next week or whenever, we're not meeting next week.
Ron,
Let's go.
an alternative would be, I'll talk to Ted Murray. We did it the last time under the aegis of the finance committee. That letter will come to you under the aegis of the finance committee until our committee is put together.
Try to put together a charge, get it to Mary. Mary can distribute it to us through email, then we can come in, we can make whatever changes we want, we can get the committee going.
All right. We're going to follow the rule of Kismet.
Well, there's other people that would say that, you know, there's a whole lot of different bunch of rules that need to be followed. And we got to be aware of those. But I do think that one of the things before we get too far down the road is that we need something from the other towns that we're not going to be dictating to them and yet not have them dictate to us, that it's going to be a collaborative effort. And I don't think that's too much to ask from any of these other towns.
It took a while to get Plainfield on board. It will take a while to get everybody under the same blanket and kissing and smooching, but I'm sure we can get there.
Very good, thank you for coming in. Excellent.
So we
Thank
may be unappointed in the wilderness.
And you don't
But
know,
I'll tell you, Poppy, it's as clear as mud.
Just as
No, thank you. It's a good discussion.
we appreciate the wolves we saved you from. How's that?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Always good to see you, sir.
Thank you, Tom.
Soon to be appointed, no doubt.
All right,
I need the bills by Wednesday at the latest.
Everybody.
all right, we got 35 minutes to try to fit in
Why don't we go outside and talk?
the high points here.
Thank you all.
DE, under old business, we got ABC. D is discuss site visit plans,
Yep.
schedule executive session minute reviews and broadband community anchor.
All right.
I don't think any of those will probably get
We're
it.
starting from scratch, so this isn't, you know.
I'd like,
Okay, I did get some liaison stuff that it would be great to do before Ron does have to go,
okay.
but I'm just throwing that out.
Well, let's go down to new business, if you don't mind.
Okay.
And go, let's talk about these open meeting law violations. The complaint dated May 14th. I think we've all been emailed and copied on all of these. So we've got these, there's two of them. There's one May 14th. Filed by Suzanne Corbett, and one on the 15th by Deb Nicholson. So this opens up a whole discussion on handling these complaints and where to go. And I mean, where are we in the whole idea of complaints in general? Mary?
Well, there are two things. There are open meeting law violation complaints. These are two new ones since annual town meeting, basically. These are the only two. I believe there are some old ones that we're getting requests for from the AG, and I've been working on that. So some others are being worked on, but these are the two new ones. And then there are also public document requests.
Do we have numbers to attach to these? Like how many of them are out there that need to be
The
responded to?
public document requests, depending on how you count, because they come in again. I would say there are 7. You might call them
Of
5.
of the open meeting law?
No, of the public document requests. Those you have 10 calendar days to answer. I have missed, they started coming in the day following annual town meeting. I have missed deadlines on that, and so I've received new versions of that as well. Those can take a little bit of time, and they can take a lot of time depending on how extensive those are. For the open meeting law complaints, these are the only 2 current open ones with the select board. There have been, I'm not sure if there's another one filed somewhere else in town.
With another board. Ann, do you have anything to offer in this discussion on? We need to get caught up on this. I know it's been a tremendous flurry of email activity about documents upon documents going back a great number of years.
Correct. What I have been seeing recently is I am receiving 1, 2, 3 copies of the same request coming in different formats of correspondence. And recent ones that have come in, that they are intricate in terms of they're involving many different departments, many different, it's not specific, it's very, very, very broad, it's very, very, very general, and it will take time to really determine and answer it correctly in the right fashion. So I have spoken with Mary and Lynn and Laura in our office, and I believe that if we take some time, beginning of May 28th, that week, which is just after Memorial Day, and not be open to the public so we can work as a group to get caught up on the public records request and the open meeting law violations and whatever we have on the table, so that we can respond in a timely fashion.
Well, I had noticed on the emails that had come through that I was very much the same opinion, that it was certainly a broad scope, you know. It certainly wasn't.
Correct.
It was buckshot. It was trying to hit a lot of different points, it seemed, instead of saying this is exactly what we're looking for, and
Right.
and going that way.
Right,
So-
and in fairness, we do have to address that because it's too broad to respond to as received. So therefore, that's an aspect of it that we need to determine before we do anything else with it.
Mary?
Kirk came up with that suggestion. I think it would be invaluable. It is very difficult to get to these sustained responses during the regular work week.
Paulette, do you have any input on this?
I'm listening.
Ann's got this suggestion about taking 4 days next week after Memorial Day.
Correct.
And having closing to the public for just that 4 days. Is that, am I reading you right?
That's my plan, that's our plan, that we can get caught up in that time frame. Yes.
Do you get 4 days, or is Friday a non-work day?
Friday is a non-work day.
So it gives you 3 full days, and one of those days was short in terms of hours opened anyway, wasn't it?
Correct.
So it's not a big impact on that day.
Correct.
Monday's already a holiday. So
Correct.
there's only really 2 days that would impact
The public, yes.
population from,
Yes.
right, in any kind of way.
Yes.
So that's not too bad.
Well, there's still, if it did take a 4th day, there still is $2,800 roughly left in that special staffing
Yes.
fund that could be used if it took extra time to get this work done. Ron, do you have any?
Yeah. These are both loaded issues. I will remind you, Tom, that if the public body, this is right out of the open meeting law, if the public body needs additional information to resolve the complaint, so in other words, you had said that these were like all over the place and it was hard to get your hands on what the complaint actually was, then you may, within 7 days, you may request the additional information within the 7 days of having received the complaint. So there's this whole protocol thing that we've been doing over the course of this last year that we have to start marching on these things. These complaints are legally allowable. We have in the past sent them to town council. Town council has advised us how to respond. I would suggest that I asked the question at the recent AG seminar, if town council could respond to these themselves, sign it. All we have to do is take a vote to support their response, and I was told that that was possible. And I would suggest, looking at these, and they're all over the place, that town council intervene on our behalf and take these and run with them. And just as, you know, I've seen several of these, and when I see this second one from Deb Nicholson, I'm looking specifically, and I'll quote her, Ron, it was in the last paragraph in that box, and I can hardly read it because it's a font that's about 5 or something like that, but it says, Select Board Member Ron Kohler stated a one-sentence summary was enough based on his contact in the AG office for clarity by telephone. I went back to the recording. I couldn't believe I said that. And what I actually said, I quoted the handbook for the Select Board. And what I had said is, because we were in this big debate at the time, and Paulette wanted to have these words entered into the minutes, I said, listen, it's right here. It's right here. And I quoted it. I said, it's one sentence. And it says, a summary shall be provided. I didn't say, a summary of one line is sufficient. And this is taking my words and misconstruing them. And I'm beside myself on this. I think we need to consider something different. And I think that this town needs to be proactive rather than reactive. And I think that we should look into concepts like cease and desist or abusive process. Those are general terms out there. But I think our attorney should be running these for us and intervening on our behalf. I think we should do it differently because they just keep getting worse and worse. And the request for documents is driving the town hall folks crazy, just absolutely crazy.
Well, these open meeting law complaints, I think I said it once before, and I'm not a bit afraid to say it again. I said I think the whole law is, I think it was poorly written. I think it was written with a poison pen, and I think there's more than enough people out there that find a way to abuse it. And it ends up abusing the rest of us. As far as the document requests, those need to be...
Those we have to do ourselves because it's going to be another.
What I'm afraid of is that I don't want this monkey business to distract us from doing the things that we talked about last week and the things that we want the rest of the town to be thinking about as far as short-term goals and long-term goals, and have us moving forward. The town doesn't deserve to be derailed by this kind of stuff. What we need to do, we need to do. But that's we need to find time to get it taken care of, to answer it the best we can, get it behind us, but not have it take up a lot of time so we don't continue doing the town's work. Paulette?
Both of these are dealing with one item, and that was Kachina's appointment at our meeting. And both of them seem to be concerned about what we put in our minutes. So overall, in a big picture kind of way, if we all went back and listened to that section of the audio again, came back prepared to make an amendment to the minutes, in most cases, what is cited in here, as far as I can tell, mostly, would probably cure that problem without having to go to the council can't answer unless she's going to listen to the audio and write a paragraph for it to put in our minutes to make an amendment to say we took care of that issue and made appropriate changes based on what some of this is pointing out.
So what you're saying, it's a thought. I mean, and maybe it would make it go away, or maybe it would make another one come on a different angle. But is that appropriate that the minutes be adjusted due to some political wind from blowing through one of the windows? I mean, is that the reason that there are so many minutes from last year that are yet to be approved? I mean, at least we are getting the minutes approved.
Well,
And that was one of the Attorney General's,
No.
when the Attorney General talked about minutes, they said it was important to get them done.
and we're still behind. We're still behind, but we'll have to work at that. You could certainly hand off to the AG, if that's what you wanted, not the AG, excuse me, town council, and say, write us an answer. I do believe each of us could go back and listen to that section, and if we put in an appropriate amount of detail to reflect, we don't have to quote it verbatim, but something more significant than we had in our meeting minutes and accurate, there's nothing to prevent us from amending the minutes. Because if you took this, from this point, if we did absolutely nothing, and we wait, and the AG gets in it, and eventually, if they cited us wrong, they're going to tell us to amend them. Well, why do we want to go through that process and spend all the legal expense? And we can probably do it ourselves as our effort to cure this, then move it out. You're right, there's nothing to prevent getting another one,
No, I bet they're in draft form already.
but I would, well, that doesn't help. That doesn't help. What I'm
What do
trying
you
to
mean that doesn't help?
Making that remark doesn't help. What I'm trying to get at is if we could take and in good faith say, okay, two people are concerned that we did not treat that section of the minutes correctly. There are several different ways to fix this. They are all within our power to do ourselves, or, as Ron said, send to town council. But I wouldn't want town council to just write something that says, we're innocent, we did no wrong, because that's just going to keep this spinning around.
I think we did fine. I cannot believe on those minutes that anybody would have a problem with them.
Oh, I
They
did.
they were drafted, they were approved right away, they reflected what we discussed, they said exactly what we voted.
It doesn't have everything in it that we said we were going to do. That section on Kachina, who came before us because she was concerned she's not been reflected in the minutes properly in the past. If you listen to the recording, and maybe Ron sees it differently, but I went back and I listened, and I compared to what we wrote, and I compared to it in terms of a summary in that section, having enough detail. It's missing things. It's not 100% accurate, and we could do better.
My
Is my
concern is, if I can just interject, is
Sure,
that
go ahead.
we have 3 people here who have had or have a vested interest in the Ashfield house. And if we bend to this and form precedents where we approve minutes and a vested interest from out there blows through the window and says, you didn't represent us correctly, then we could face much larger issues. And it's the concept of appearance. And I think we did this very fairly. I think, if I recall back before you came even, Tom, that Kachina did have issues. And what we gave her was an opportunity to come before this board with a letter. She took our recommendation and came forward with a letter, a detailed letter, describing all of her concerns. And we put it in the minutes that she came with this. We attached it as a document to the document list. I think it was fine. I think we've done our job. And if the AG wants to spend time on this, then maybe they can enlighten us a little bit more. But I think this vested interest in the Ashfield house weighing in at this table has no place. Do I need an approval line by Suzanne Corbett on the end of all my minutes? Do I need that? I mean, let's just get it now if we're going to do it. Or by Deb Nicholson. And the one who was agreed, Kachina, I haven't seen anything from her.
Did you look at our minutes?
I did look at our minutes
Did
and
you
I approved them.
Okay, no, but did you look at the document list?
I thought I did.
It's not in there.
Her letter isn't in on the document list.
No.
Is that true?
I don't know if you approved the
Document 3 is not Kachina's.
document list, but I can tell you it is in the file
It's
for the
not-
meeting. If it's not on the document list, I assume, I don't know, did those minutes come to the board?
It did, and we approved them. And all of a
Did
sudden,
you ask
I
for it
went
to-
back and I looked, and they're not there.
Did you ask for it to be added to the document list?
Why would I?
I'm
You're
surprised.
talking about it now.
I'm surprised.
I didn't.
I'm surprised that it wasn't attached to the document list, because we checked all the capital letters and the correct spelling of names and that sort of thing, and we didn't check the
But I can
document
assure
list.
you it's in the
Evidently
file.
not. No, I looked, because when we got this, I said, did we really? Did we miss that much? And I went and I looked, and it's not there. So I'm just trying to say, I bet we could correct some of this, make a first stab to make it better. How bad can that be? And yes, if somebody came forward to us and
I
said,
think that's a horrible precedent to set, we need to go back and update those. I mean, we could certainly make it, if that document is not part of those minutes, it's not on that document list, I would hope that we would, in tonight's minutes, if it's not there, agree to attach it to tonight's minutes and say that it was missing from that night, and that would
We
be
can keep
fine.
a copy in the regular
But to
file and
go
move
back
on forward to this file.
To go back, I think that's borders on fraud, to go back and doctor up minutes afterwards.
no, it doesn't.
I believe it does.
No, it
Does
doesn't.
to
You can
me.
make an amendment. What are you going to do with, you you go back and you read what we agreed to in the minutes, and you listen to what she said, and you and I had a conversation that night, because you said, she said yes, and I said, I didn't think so, and you said, yes, you thought she did, and it turns out she never did. Don't we want our minutes to be right? I mean, some of what they're citing is true.
I would just like to say that, because I have certainly, a number of people have been involved in doing minutes over the time I've been here, at least 3 other people besides me. But this conversation is reminding me very much how minutes stay out there, stay open, stay unfinished, how minutes became almost all we were able to do for a long period of time. And I guess I have seen so many of these, I can't imagine that. I mean, think how many minutes we have accepted, how many more we will continue to accept, and how many times any individual set of minutes can come back, even once they've been approved, for something or something else or an argument.
Also, I think we could do better. I don't think there's any problem with our amending them in saying information is to be brought to light by these 2 documents. We could take and make that paragraph about her appointment more substantial in terms of the specificity of what happened, correct anything if there's something that's misstated, and we can make the adjustment, make the amendment based on brought to us. If we do that, they're looking for it to be correct, that's not so difficult to do. The AG would prefer us to probably fix it and say, we made our attempt to deal with this was to go back and amend our minutes to be more correct, more precise, whatever word you want to use.
I
And
find
was
that
our
you're very
mission.
free to speak for the attorney general.
I'm not speaking,
Well, you quote them and you speak as that you have an intimate relationship, that you know what they want and what they need. I think from the response we had from the Attorney General on some of those other cases, what they really want is they want minutes approved in a timely manner.
They want them to be correct and they want them to have enough specificity.
Well, I haven't seen
I'm
that
saying the AG.
that I think particularly lack. But to move the subject forward on what to do with where we are now, I'd make a motion that we forward the open meeting law complaints to town council and to direct Mary to work with town council to get the information to develop some answers to these. And that we also close the town office to the public next week for the 4 days after Memorial Day, so the town hall staff can spend their time to make sure we're caught up on all the document requests that have come in and that may not have been taken care of before town meeting.
Can you make that 2 motions instead of 1 and split them up? They're 2 different topics. One's about public records and one's about open meeting or intent.
It's all about getting this stuff out of there. I mean, if nobody seconds it, they can make any other motion they like. But I felt that it took care of the whole thing at one time.
I'll second it just to get it on the table so we can discuss it.
All right, let's have some further discussion on it.
I'm keenly interested. I mean, really, if someone was to ask me what I was expecting after the Kachina thing, that should have been on the document list. Because we had spoken before about the need to document her concerns. And without it on the document list, it's just the 1 paragraph. So I don't think that we need to go back and amend those minutes. I think that's a dangerous precedent. But I think a letter of apology to Kachina and just saying that her document is attached as part of these minutes might be appropriate, because she had spoken loudly and clearly that she wanted some record of that. And I think just attaching it isn't enough, because it was in my belief that we were going to make it part of the formal thing. But I also want the town council to prepare our responses with her signature, and we vote on them, and you and Mary work on them, because that's how we've gotten tied up in the past. We all put the clocks running on these things. Someone's got to do the work, and then we vote on it, and we deliberate. deliberate on it, you know, but I think, I would like to see a change in the way we've been doing it. Because when the AG's office called me at my home about some of these, I said, well, just look at the town council's response. And she goes, I don't have anything from the town council. It's because we took her email words and put them in the complaint versus her signing it on our behalf. And I think she's done the work, she's going to bill us, it can't be that much harder. And if we take issue with it and stray from her recommendation, then we've got to sign it, you know. So it's kind of like an amendment to what you're saying, and however you want to present it or whatever, I don't know how, if it's a friendly amendment or what do you.
To say that just when we turn it to the town council, you would like the town council to actually draft the
To
document and sign
intervene
it.
on our behalf, and that we would vote on it.
All that?
I believe our minutes of April 8th, when Katrina came before us, the paragraph that's there about her appointment has some correctness to it, some misstatements. It is not specific enough because there were other things said that were important that we said to her, that she said to us, and the documents are missing. And I do believe, and maybe it's a good question for town council, why can't we make an amendment and not just keep this out there costing money with town council when that could be our first attempt to fix this, is to make that amendment. And I don't think there's anything wrong if somebody feels that passionate that we've made a mistake in our minutes, correcting them to make them more accurate and to fix whatever, to me, seems the right thing to do. I don't think the world is going to be sending these to us all the time saying, I didn't like this paragraph or that paragraph. What they cited was something we didn't do correct, and they brought it to our attention.
I think
I think we can fix it.
All right. I mean, my position is pretty straightforward, and Paulette is certainly different, but I really do believe that once minutes are approved, they're approved. And anything ahead of that belongs in another set of minutes.
So why don't you restate the motion? Sorry.
My motion was to refer the open meeting law violations to town council and ask for a response. Direct Mary to work with town council to do the research and to ask for a response. And I'll accept your amendment to ask for her to reply on our behalf. Intervene on our behalf. And to also allow the town offices to be closed for the public so the staff, for the week of Memorial Day, so the staff can catch up on all the document requests that have come in, both the ones since town meeting and any that are open from before.
And how do you feel about sending a letter to Katrina saying that her document would be included on this meeting's document?
I think certainly that could be separate motion. I think that would be fine.
I'll second the motion, as stated.
All right. Maren?
Just discussion point, which I guess is the question of should I also request town council to request an extension so that you can see town council's answer, or should I have town council send the answer?
Oh, no,
We have to vote to, yeah, we'll have to see that, so.
but as a point of information, I think we should be very, we should always use the concept of asking for an extension from the AG's office. If it looks like we're not meeting next week, right?
Right.
So we've got these things, so I think we need to also direct the mayor to apply for extensions.
I know we're all busy, but you said you went back and you listened to the recording again?
Just as it related to what Deb Nicholson said, I didn't listen to, it's a 3 or 4 hour.
I went back and listened to the whole part of Kachina being with us, kind of thing. And I went and I looked at the minutes and I looked at the documents. So we all did different things, different levels of involvement with this coming before us. I wish you had put the two things together in a motion.
All right. All those in favor of the motion that's on the floor as it pertains to the open meeting law violations, acting on those, and closing the town office to get caught up on the document requests and that sort of thing, say aye. Aye. No? Abstain?
No for town council, and yes to let them close for the week.
So I guess that's a no.
That's why you should have put them together.
All right. Well, it's off the table anyway. Other new business. There's a state election warrant to be signed.
There's,
And then, Doug, I haven't forgot that you've been so patient. Oh, take it the town clerk has requested this.
yes.
This is, we have to sign this to hold the election from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. on Tuesday, the 25th of June, to cast their votes in special state election for the candidates for senator and Congress for this Commonwealth. Given under our hands this 20th day of May, 2013. And it has a place for all of us to sign. Does anybody have any problems or comments? Oh my gosh, 3 places. Like some other signatures we see that come in different all the time. There we go. Paulette, you're next in line. We'll leave Ron with his big sweeping signature at the bottom.
I've seen him squeeze it into a little space.
It has flair.
Oh, there's 3.
Yeah. Practice, 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 Paulette.
It's not sure.
All right. Now, I'd like to, since we're at 9 o'clock, but there's one thing that I would like to make sure we get taken care of, and I know, Paulette, you have a liaison report. What are we going to do about this discuss site visit plans and open meeting law seminar? Remember last week we had a long discussion about the retaining wall and looking at the lake dam? Doug, this is where I'm coming in. Now, I'm under the understanding that at the seminar last week, they said we can't do that.
No.
The open meeting law to the rescue again. Hooray.
You can go there together, you just can't deliberate about it.
They said we couldn't discuss it. was
Said you
what I
couldn't
understood.
discuss it at all, you asked John
Well, the
Scarsy, could you point to this?
The
point?
problem
He
is
said no.
because you end up in a deliberation. It's not like when we met with the finance committee and we're talking to them. So we end up, no matter what we think is a discussion, a deliberation about the wall or whatever.
So you're correcting me by saying there's absolutely no reason for us to go there because we can't discuss anything about it. We can't even say, gee, that's a lovely tree, but it's got to come down.
I think
I mean,
that,
it's a correction,
He
it's
was
a,
there too.
yeah, it comes down to a failure to accommodate handicap access. And I think what we can all do fairly easily, with just a little direction from me, just a little, is walk in a certain direction about this many feet, look over the side of a wall, come back to this meeting. I can bring in some pictures on 8.5 by 11 by paper, and we can really discuss it. The same is true with the dam. I can do that for you, but it would be good if you can, and I know the big issues there, and if you guys could just walk it on your own. And then we can come back here and have that discussion, and that really isn't so bad.
So you could tell us, like, you want to focus as you walk along at this, and this.
Absolutely.
So that when we do it, we're looking at the right thing.
What the concern for permits
To
is,
come back here to
bridge,
talk about.
and with a mowing strip down at the base of the dam, and all these different things. It's unfortunate, but it's the law.
Brian, you have,
I was just going to offer the Conservation Commission frequently makes site visits to the locations, and the rules we operate under, as we understand it from the state, is you're there to gather information. You just don't do any deliberation with each other. You usually have the property owner in this case there. You ask them questions, gather information. You just don't deliberate with each other about the issue. You just collect information, then you go back and have a meeting to do the deliberation.
Which is where we thought it was, but after two things came up at the open meeting moment. One was the handicap access, and you can't go to a place where it isn't accessible. And in fact, Paulette asked Jonathan
Or a
Sklarczyk-
site visit?
For a site visit. And in fact, Paulette asked Jonathan Sklarczyk, could we solve that by putting on the meeting notice, if anybody has an accessibility issue, please get in touch with us. And
This sounds
no,
like a meeting now, not a site visit.
no, a site visit, but it also has to be a meeting if there is a quorum. You can't do a site visit unless it's a meeting, if there is a quorum of anybody. And it has to be handicapped accessible. And
That's ridiculous.
in terms of the discussion, your question specifically about discussion, because there were the two issues. There's the accessibility issue and the discussions issue. And your question specifically to Jonathan Sklarczyk was, could the person, and I assumed you meant Ron, who knows most about the wall we're going to visit, point and say, this is where the problem is, and he said, no.
We don't have another person to talk to. You were talking about the homeowner, at least you were asking questions perhaps of the homeowner. We have to talk to each other about the
But
dam or the wall.
That tells you
so
how
when we're
little
deliberating.
communication there can be between the members.
Right.
But I
so
think it's
there
a
is,
small issue.
well, I want it to get done.
But I can do it. I can get out there before next meeting. And
The reason I asked Doug as emergency manager, I mean, the emergency manager has quite a lot to do about the dam and that sort of thing. And what I was hoping to do is, and I feel free to say no, Doug, but what I was hoping is if you could put together a little packet and take Doug on a walkabout and explain that, what the important issues are. And then Doug, if you could meet with Paulette and show her the same thing, and then on a Sunday morning when we get done coffee, that you would take me around and we'd go through the same packet. Is that, are you agreeable to that?
Yeah, I can do that.
And then we'd be able to have the information that Ron feels is important. And then I think it would be great to have Doug as emergency manager. You know, he'll have a few things that he may add or not, but I mean, it's just foolishness that we have to make 4 trips around the place to get it done, but you know, let's try to eliminate some of these OML allegations.
Well, Ron had the same thing with telling us where to go with that, but we've just got to be careful not to run information back and forth through Doug, or that becomes a serial communication amongst us, so we just need to be careful.
I think it can be done. I have met out there with both Tommy and Doug, and on the other side, the Sanderson side, is Tommy because of the that's a road, and that we need his knowledge there. So
Why
I
don't
am prepared to do that.
Okay, if that's fine with you, does that sound like a workable deal? And we can make appointments with Doug or with Tom or whoever we need? to
And
get
I'll
it
prep
done?
them on, the serial conduit thing and say, you can't say I said this, you can't be a
Oh,
messenger.
come on. I mean, let's be,
Well, I don't want them to get in trouble. They're
it's
gonna
just,
be-
it's just,
Most people have brought it up, and we have had,
it's impossible to follow the law and actually get anything accomplished. That's where my frustration is.
we have.
We're trying to get something done
Yeah.
without making 7 times more work out of it, but the law doesn't allow that.
There were people there doing a site visit to a gravel pit. They had the same kind of problem, it's not accessible, and you gotta go and see.
That doesn't make me feel better that other people suffer the same way we do, but I suppose misery likes company.
It worked great with Paulette and I a couple times when we were together somewhere. Paulette would say, I am the select board, Doug is emergency manager. And that's when we were both on board. And nobody could say anything. But I mean, but we did that.
Well, we had to, when we were doing
Yeah.
Irene and
Right,
Sandy.
so I mean, but I can see where you're coming from.
Yeah, I'm talking about cutting a corner.
Oh, we did learn, well, I learned 2 other ones from there, just to take a moment to share. The next time we have an emergency, when we need to sign those documents to declare a town emergency, we need to post an emergency meeting of the select board, like we're meeting in 5 minutes. The purpose of it is to sign the document and produce some minutes of that. In the past, I think we just signed.
No, we've done it in meetings, I believe.
No,
Ones I've done.
no, the last one, I'm talking about sitting over there and we just signed.
I just called.
Ron walked in, I signed, Ron signed, Ron signed.
I
And they
asked
said we
the
should-
question specifically, and I said, listen, I don't have access to the glass box out there. And you're saying I've got to post it, and it's a meeting in an hour, or 5 minutes? They said, put it up, tape it to it, and record when you're doing it. And then we understand that sort of thing, at least you posted it. The emergency ones,
Yep.
So it is a small step, but it's an important step to keep us safe.
We can keep that in mind, and
The
let's
whole-
hope it don't let.
I mean, that whole deal is just foolish beyond belief. But I understand that it's the law, so hopefully we won't have any emergencies.
That
No,
was-
it'd be nice.
That presentation that we went to is on their website, he told me. And what some places have done where there's limited access in town for web is announced, like you could set up in here and project it and people could come in. Then somebody takes down the questions, email them the questions, and then send them back because they've got that whole thing recorded. And when you watch it, they talk it through.
Well, why don't
there's
we work through on this dam and retaining wall deal, and so we all have an idea, because I wanna move this along forward. If it needs to be done in the summer is, like Paulette said, summer is quickly approaching and will even more quickly be gone. So Paulette, you wanted to move on to liaison
Just
report?
a quick question of Doug, if you
Yep.
Doug, on the last subject, the generator, I thought of this question after, but it's time sensitive. You had said you've got no time to do it. We're not meeting next week. You don't need our approval for anything or our signature, do you? For the generator?
No.
You're okay without it?
All I have to do, no, because it's already been signed.
Good.
All I gotta do is submit the bill to, and they copy the check to Beamer, and they'll send it like that.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh. I want to make sure I share these with you because last week we talked about the job descriptions. There is a master book that the personnel committee was putting together. So we've had it Xeroxed, it's identical, it's got all the job descriptions. The hope is that the select board would take these, mark them up, bring them back to our meeting, discuss them, give the changes back to the personnel board, and when we're done, the personnel board will make all the changes. There'll be electronic copies, because some of these we do not have electronic copies for. And if we have them by the end of June, that'd be fantastic. Otherwise, we'd love to have them by the July 17th. That would give us time to get them put together and get them back to you for September.
That's
And
great.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, these are
I'll do my
current.
best to to get.
And you
them
can
in.
mark them up. The intent is to mark them up, and then maybe we come back and go through them together and say, okay, these changes, we're all agreeing. We'll give the books back, and then
That's
they'll
super.
get you copies that then we can all sign up.
Super duper.
Okay.
Thank them for that.
Mary, I didn't make another book because we have the master book and the personnel file of these as they look right now. So maybe for documents, we could make the reference to that instead of a fourth version of this around
And
someplace.
it's in the file drawer.
It's in the file drawer in there. And so all we did is copy it.
Please thank them, Paul. That's
Yes.
significant.
So we wanted to get it right away.
This will make,
Right.
this
It'll
will
move
make
it
that
along.
whole other timescale work.
I told them you were interested in moving it along, so we worked on that instead of policy. The second liaison thing I had, I typed up, I met with the chief. So I decided to type up what we discussed. There.
Since we talked about only going until 9 and it's 12 after, would it be all right if we digested this and put this on the agenda to discuss this next week?
Perfect.
Is that all
I just
right?
want to make sure I passed out
Well,
the
thanks
copies
for doing
tonight.
that. I mean, I think that would be great.
Question I have on this is, have I seen this letter? I mean, you reference a letter, and I know you two were looking at one last week, but I wasn't looking at your track.
Grab the West County News.
Oh, wait a minute. No, Mary, weren't you gonna email it to us?
Is it the letter that was in the Independent?
Maybe I was gonna email it to you and I
But I
can get you,
took-
but I will do that.
Okay,
I believe it's
I
the
took
same
a
one.
copy.
It's probably the same one that's in the newspaper.
Well, if it's the same one, I've seen that.
Why don't I check if there's any difference, I'll scan and email it to all you. If
I
there is-
appreciate that.
If there's no difference,
I have read that.
But I think probably it'd be good if you had time sometime this week to email it, just to have an official record of it anyway, because
It wouldn't hurt.
it's not enough to cite
We
the
actually talked
independent.
about it last week, I believe.
And I think you gave me the printed copy to go see him.
you took a printed.
I took a printed copy, right. So you're right, Mom.
We have the draft in our folder of the net metering, so we can kind of go over that and get a flavor for what that is. That's actually on next week's agenda with the sewer commissioners,
The third.
the 3rd.
The next, okay, the next,
The next
June
week,
3rd.
the June 3rd.
And it did get sent to town council, and they requested it just be a quick look for a first draft.
The only other thing that I want to share with the board is we talked about Tom Poisson's candidate for the highway department. He turned down the position. So Tom would like to go to his second candidate, which is Luke Panamel. He doesn't have his hoister's license as of yet, but he has the other documentation and the things that he needs. He's been working for the town. I'm in favor of it. I mean,
Is he planning to get a license?
a nice young man. Yeah, I mean, he's been working for the town. I don't have any issue myself if Tom wants to offer him that position and he's willing to take it. The only issue that I have is since he's been working for the town part-time, it does not really improve our position. You know what I'm saying, is that we're not going to be all of a sudden up a man.
Right.
But-
so take them from
but-
reserves.
I think unless somebody has an issue, I'm fine with Tom offering him that position if he takes the position, and then in the interim, while Richard's still out, and we're still trying to come to some kind of end on that, you know, figure out what that situation's gonna be with his hand and so forth, that he can hire another part-time person to fill in.
because you said his name is Luke, that he was working part-time. So it's-
Well, he's been working, I think he's been working 3 days a week, or he's been going to school at the same time, so.
Would you explain what a hoister license is?
Hoister's license is to be running, what is it, Duncan? You gotta, if you lift a load over 8 feet or some such thing as that, you know, so it would be like for running the backhoe, running the payloader at heights, that sort of thing.
How involved is it? to get one? I mean, is he close to it? Because then that means you can't drive certain things or operate certain
Well,
equipment.
what's funny, the way I understand it with the hoister's license is maybe you shouldn't be running the backhoe, but you could run the grader. Because you're not lifting anything up. So it's
More or less a formality. Not a-
it's a state exam, right? It's a,
Does he plan to get it though? Is that his
Yeah.
intention? Maybe a
I-
letter of
I-
offer,
I-
I should say, I think that's. I'm
we
fine
should
with
do
that.
that. And then that would free up Tommy and he could, at least he could feel like he has that off his desk and he doesn't know. And I wanted to take care of it tonight because if we're not meeting next week, you know, that whole thing can move along.
But it would be great to encourage him to go ahead and get that, because I think then it makes it easier to schedule who's using what piece of equipment.
That really does it for me.
I have one question.
Go ahead.
Do we plan to get together for the parade?
Oh my God, what do we do on the parade? Do we have to post that for Memorial
No, we
Day?
don't.
Just don't speak to each other.
Just don't deliberate.
We cannot talk about our town business. We can talk about the parade, the flags,
Oh, the
whatever.
flowers are nice and the band, because then I should say it probably. Being recorded. Huh? Well, you know, it's no big secret. I sleep with the person that puts the parade together. And she sent a message that, you know, that we're invited and she wants to show up.
So what's
So
the
10
time?
o'clock.
10 o'clock at the firehouse?
Right here, right out in front. The
Oh, from the
first,
town hall?
right, the first speaker will be right here. And
All right.
they did it last year, right?
We did.
It doesn't change a whole lot from year to year.
On behalf of Ron and myself, would you please inform the lady of your household that we think we'll be able to make it barring any other circumstances?
Tom, you
Yes.
guys need to vote, you know what I'm saying?
There was a vote before, so maybe it'd be a good idea if there's
A vote for what?
To
have Tom authorize
Okay.
superintendent to hire
Okay.
next.
The next-
Because
I
before,
made a motion.
before
I
next,
thought I heard Paulette whisper it. So, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
So move.
So moved. All right.
Thank you, folks, and sorry for
How do
rushing.
you feel that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I should. I think I know what it's coming down.
It's been a lingerer.
It has, and I think it's an allergy situation.
You know, Friday, did you hear about, at our house last Tuesday?
No. Oh, a dog.
My dog.
Oh, yeah, but I saw Sandy walking.
So,
What
yeah,
happened to the dog?
she came unhooked. Now, if it was human error or fancy dog tricks or what it was, I mean, she's been there for 2 years, never a problem, she got unhooked. We changed, she just kind of went around town, and so Sandy came home and she called me, she said, did you take Lily with you? I said, no, I took her. I'm down in Hatfield. Sandy was beside herself, couldn't find her. So we came, the boys came down, we looked till like 10 o'clock at night, calling her, you know.
She showed
And every once in a while, you could stand in the driveway and you could swear that she got a little ear infection, so she's always shaking her collar, you know.
You could hear the couple.
And we'd say, God, is that just us thinking it, or, you know? And I said to Sandy, I said, you know, let's go to bed. I said, tomorrow morning at 5:30, I'll get up. She'll be sleeping on her bed to get fed.
Yes.
So I get up at 5:30 and I go out and she's not there. Well, then I get upset. So we get everybody off to work and everything and go to, Sandy had a appointment to get her car serviced in Greenfield. So I followed her to Greenfield, brought her back to Buckland Shelter. And I was going to go to work and I said, you know, I'm going to go home and make some more telephone calls, you know, drop a few dimes and see if anybody's. And I'm making a few telephone calls, and the phone rang. And she was in the house right across from ours. And she was in the cellar.
What you did?
The cellar door, I guess, was open just a bit. And they got a couple of cats, and so she chased the cats into the cellar, and then the cellar door closed.
How'd they find you?
So she smelled. they heard her chain jingling downstairs, and so they found her, and so we were very relieved that we got, but
Lily must have been relieved to be found.
I thought, well, she didn't, I think there was a lot of cat food. And I said, oh, guys, you reduced yourself to eating cat food, but, you know. A friend of mine says if you eat steak every day, once in a while a hot dog would taste good too. But, so anyway, Friday morning, look, I really was thinking about it, Friday morning, there was something about Friday morning, that the air was exceptionally still. I mean, it was just perfect. And the lilacs were out, and I just happened to go out at 5:30 to get the paper and feed the dog, and it was just so still, and there was like that flowering pear at the end of our driveway, and the lilacs and the azaleas, there were still some blossoms on them. And I mean, it really was nice to be in Ashfield and be able to smell all that, and I thought that was, I mean, it just hit just right, and I said, this is a day I've never experienced where you could, everything came together.
No allergies.
I thought it was really neat. Anyway, I thought I'd share that. Thank you. Share my softer side. All right.